Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is January 19th, 2025, and let's get to the news and updates happening in Ukraine and Russia, shall we? Before I begin, I apologize in advance. I'm a little bit sick, so my voice is not really quite there yet, and I just wanted to give you FYI. I might cough a little bit during this video, maybe. But let's get to the news, and first I want to talk about a big milestone that was reached today. And Oryx, this surprised me because Oryx, if some of you may not remember, back in October of 2023, they stopped their operation, their project of calculating and estimating the losses on both sides, military losses for Ukraine and Russia. But apparently the project continued, and they came out with a recent estimate of the Russian casualties and losses, equipment losses since the beginning of the invasion, and it's 20,000 units as of today. This is catastrophic. But if we go into details, in terms of the tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and MRAPs, you can see that it amounted to a total of 11,597 units. In addition, 437 units of total artillery systems, 869 units of self-propelled artillery systems, and 451 multiple rocket launchers were lost. At least 298 air defense systems, 134 planes, and 151 helicopters were also lost. And these are conservative losses because this is all based on visual evidence, right? Oryx is using images and videos to calculate and estimate the losses for Russia and Ukraine. And it's hard to wrap your head around it because Russia's lost more equipment than what dozens of countries have in their military stocks combined. And of course, this doesn't include either the Russian losses from the period of 2014 till 2022, before the full-scale war occurred. They've also had multiple losses. They transferred a lot of armored vehicles to the separatists and their own military, which was present in Ukraine since 2014. And also imagine all the additional losses without the visual evidence. This is going to bring us to an even higher number than 20,000. So this is catastrophic. And this brings me to the other slide because you guys know that I've been talking in the last few weeks about the pitiful state of the Russian military, how there's been a massive degradation of the Russian military, that they're now assaulting certain areas in Ukraine with just civilian vehicles exclusively because they simply don't have tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, APCs, MRAPs. And here's a photo collage of the state of the Russian military. And all these pictures were sourced from the past month. So this is not something that I've sourced from like a year or two ago. This is all recent from videos, images that I've been seeing in the past few weeks. And you can see a lot of Soviet vans are being used, converted to military usage. Dirt bikes and motorcycles, civilian Ladas converted to military usage. You can see that they've been cutting a lot of these Ladas to kind of pickup trucks. You can see Gazelle 69 with the cope cage welded on top of it. They've also been converting their Ural trucks with cope cages, and I think these look like rubber mats that they've been putting on top of it. I don't see how the driver is supposed to see where he's going. Dirt bikes, of course. It's just a pitiful state that they're in. I'm not saying that this is the entire front line is like that, but you can see that based on also the statements of the Ukrainian soldiers on the front line, that they have seen a dramatic reduction of armored vehicles on the Russian side. So with anyone saying that Russia's strong, do you really expect them to take Kyiv anytime soon? I seriously doubt that. However, and this is a very big one, we cannot underestimate the Russian military. And one of the biggest assets that Russia has right now is manpower. Even with this pitiful state, you can see that all these Russian soldiers are very happy to go and die. They're very happy to sacrifice their lives for a square meter of additional territory that they captured and occupy. And that's the biggest resource that Russia still has plenty of. Hundreds of thousands of men that are still willing to go and die for Putin. Imagine if this was the state of the US military in the Afghanistan war or in Iraq. Do you think the civilian population would accept that? Again, I seriously doubt that. But this shows us as well the mindset of the Russian population, that they're completely okay with the pitiful state of their military. And unfortunately, as I've said, the biggest factor here of why Russia still continues with its pushes and gaining ground is because their brainwashed population, their soldiers, are completely fine with dying, and they simply don't care about their losses. But I still want to share you with these images because I've been talking a lot about the Russian assaults and how they've been degraded. And again, this is the silver lining, is you can't be efficient at capturing territory with these types of vehicles. First of all, you cannot carry a tremendous amount of soldiers. There's no protection. As soon as they're hit with an artillery shell or an FPV drone, they're all injured. There's no return from that. And also supplies, they can't carry as many supplies. And it's very difficult to advance quickly with these types of vehicles. And for the Ukrainians, it's a lot easier to stop them. Although the problem here is the quantity, because you can bet that they have millions of these Ladas and Soviet vans available that they can convert for their assaults. So that's the kind of negative side here, but it's a lot easier for the Ukrainians as long as they produce FPV drones, they have enough drone operators to stop these Russian assaults. So I just wanted to share you guys a little photo collage. Let me know what you guys think about this. But certainly the degradation is certainly there. The erosion of the Russian military and the belief that somehow this is the second best or largest military of the world. We'll look at what Ukraine has converted them to in the matter of 3 years. And last but not least, let's talk about Trump, because there was an interesting article that came out yesterday in the Telegraph talking about Ukraine warning the Trump administration that early peace talks with Russia would be catastrophic. And the Ukraine officials, for them, the chief hope is that if the incoming president cannot be persuaded to offer the support needed on the battlefield, he can at least be convinced to not abandon Ukraine entirely. And I've talked about it in the last few weeks, saying that I'm pretty optimistic with the Trump administration, as much as I do believe Trump is an imbecile. And, I don't like Trump, but I think his administration is still filled with pretty competent people with regards to the Ukrainian question. And they have managed, I think, to persuade the Trump that it is not within his interest to completely cut off the aid for Ukraine. And you can see that one thing that indicates that is that he has gone completely quiet on the suggestion that he could solve the Ukraine war on his first day in office. I don't like the word crisis. It's not a crisis, it's a war. And he still wants a quick end to the war, but is reported to have acknowledged it will take up to 6 months. And we know that 6 months is very, very, it's definitely not going to be solved in 6 months. It's going to take even longer than that. But, he's pushing the envelope a little bit here. And Trump, while Mr. Trump may hope to negotiate directly with Putin, alpha male to alpha male, the president-elect risks repeating Joe Biden's hapless departure from Afghanistan if Russia is allowed to dismember Ukraine. And you guys remember, if you've been watching my videos in the last few weeks, I've been talking about this. One of the reasons being why Trump cannot cut off the aid to Ukraine and force Ukraine to capitulation, within a matter of a few weeks, because this would be kind of the Afghanistan moment for the Trump administration. And remember that when that happened for Joe Biden, his polls, his support never was the same again. And this also, I think, was one of the reasons why Russia felt compelled to attack Ukraine, because they saw weakness in the American leadership, that they just abandoned Afghanistan like that, left billions of dollars worth of military equipment, and just said goodbye. And of course, if I was Putin, I would see that and would say, well, look, the US is not interested in being involved anymore in securing world peace, in making sure that they continue supporting their allies. And so I think that Trump definitely understands that. And I think that message got across from his administration, his team, and Ukraine as well, pushing that narrative. And again, I think Trump understands very well that Ukraine's defeat equals the US and NATO defeat in the global stage. Where there is a divergence of opinion right now is, what is Ukraine's victory? It is completely different. The opinion is completely different. And the vision is different of what Ukraine sees as a victory and what NATO sees as a victory. And one thing as well that's important here is, of course, Trump's ego is through the roof, and he has a desire to win a Nobel Peace Prize. He felt like he should have won it during his first stint in the White House, and you're not going to win a peace prize if you sign a peace deal between you force and you force Ukraine to capitulate for a peace deal that is only going to be temporary, because we can bet, and I can bet you $100 that if Ukraine is forced into capitulation, to give up territory, to demilitarize, all the points that Russia's pushing for, that the war is not going to end in a matter of months. Yes, months. Russia's going to launch another offensive in Ukraine after that, if that is a scenario that occurs. And Trump will be embarrassed if he wins the peace prize, only to see it, well, not taken away, but people are saying, why did he win it if Russia continues with its military campaign in Ukraine and maybe other NATO countries? So I think that he understands very well all of these important points. And again, the last point I want to talk about is, if Trump wants to go against China, which the American leadership right now sees as their main opponent, you don't have the choice but to strengthen Ukraine and ensure its security, because Russia's defeat will also be China's defeat. They're working together to undermine the free world. And so it's really important to also get that point across, that strengthening Ukraine is also in Trump's interests, because he can't go against China by seeing Ukraine fall apart, and then eventually Europe being, also attacked by Russia, and then that's going to give a signal to China that, hey, we can get away with Taiwan, we can get away with other countries in the global south, with the Philippines or other island nations in the global south. What is the US going to do? Are they going to get involved? Doesn't seem like it. They threw Ukraine, they just threw them out, and we can get ahead by, we can go ahead and attack Taiwan and other countries, and nobody's going to stop us. Just that belief alone is going to be destructive for Mr. Trump. So let me know, guys, what you think about any of the news that I covered today. Huge thank you for support. Again, in order to convert the Russians into an even more pitiful state, please donate to the Ukrainian drone program. I have a link below in the description of this video, or you can donate to the Rusori's drone fund, which helps the Ukrainians decimate the Russian military throughout the front line. It is very difficult for the Ukrainians. Russia is indeed advancing slowly, but you can see that the more they advance, the more they become their military state becomes worse and worse. And you can be an active part of this disintegration of the Russian military. So with all that, thank you guys. Slava Ukraini.